As I'm recording this, it is October 1st, my favorite month of the year. I am Virtue from BigVito.com and the Big Vito brand here with another edition of Virtue's brand of wrestling. And as you can see, we got the cauldron going on in the background. We got all kinds of Halloween stuff going on. It's dark. It's spooky. It's gloomy. My birthday is October 30th, and we are going to have a lot of fun this month. Wait till you see my movie of the week. Simple topic today about wrestling is I was thinking, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to thought this. What if the online wrestling community, also known as the internet wrestling community, IWC, whatever you want to call it, of the modern day era, what if it existed in another dimension, the Twilight Zone? What if it existed, just saying, in the mid to late 80s, early 90s during the WWF golden era? Drinking my Sprite. And why I'm saying that, could you imagine the way that old school wrestlers were and still are? And I briefly talked about this in my previous video when I mentioned, what if King Kong Bundy, what if he was walking down the airport in smarks like today because they didn't like him because he was pushed like Roman Reigns? What if they called King Kong Bundy a lazy, lard ass, you suck, you can't wrestle? What do you think he would have done? He would have cut a hellacious promo on him. He would have ignored him, and he would have continued to do what he does. He wouldn't have got all empathetic, sympathetic, and cried out, boo-hoo. Could you imagine? I'm just saying, could you imagine that the ultimate warrior, right, Jim Hellwig, most outspoken guy ever, could you imagine him, Randy Savage, with Sherry on social media? Could you imagine if social media existed back then and those type of wrestlers had it? Sure, you would have your Hulk Hogan saying, say your prayers, take your vitamins, yada, yada, yada. You could have the Warrior go off on his tangents, the Macho King and Sherry putting fans in their place. And now, granted, the Smarks probably would have liked those people, so they wouldn't have really treated them bad. But could you imagine, like, Bad News Brown? Oh, you suck. You're not talented. You can't wrestle. You have 3 moves, and 2 of them are punches. Granted, I just can only imagine talent back then, flipping through, if smartphones were a thing in the golden era, flipping through their phone, looking at Smarks critique them. Sergeant Slaughter, when he did the Iraqi sympathizer gimmick, and you Sarge, go back to G.I. Joe. You suck. These wrestlers would lay in. I mean, absolutely obliterate these smarks and trolls today. And think about it. Back then, you had TV shows like Roseanne, Married with Children. Even before that generation, you had All in the Family and the Jeffersons. I was watching the Jeffersons the other day, and Sherman Hemsley, however you say his name, he actually said the N-word himself. And we know what Archie Bunker said. Back then, it was different, right? I'm not saying that it wasn't appropriate, but they showed the issues that existed, right? Racial tension, this and that. Today, you can't do that. And you can't even criticize a wrestler for making mistakes in the ring. Granted, fans go to watch movies. We watch sports games, and we complain with the best of them. The Denver Broncos just lost tonight, right, to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just saw Case Keenum, whatever his name is, overthrow Demaryius Thomas, which would have been the game-winning touchdown, potential game-winning touchdown, because there would have been some time. left on the clock. But an Elway would have hit that throw. Peyton Manning would have hit that throw. Case Keenum didn't, overshot it. They end up losing the game. Fans probably go out and tweet Case Keenum, you suck, blah, 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 this and that. When you're in the spotlight, that's what happens, right? You're going to get negative criticism. But I want to just go back in the day. And if we could just take all of this online wrestling community and put it in the 80s, Piper being a heel and Smarks saying, oh, you're past your prime, Roddy, go to Hollywood, stay in Hollywood, don't come back. Don't come back and wrestle Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. You got a bad hip, you suck. Could you imagine what Piper would have did back then? Especially at that time when there were, wrestlers weren't told to be sensitive. And sure, maybe a lot of this is because WWE is PG now and it is a publicly traded company. So the talent is probably told to act a certain way for the most part. But back then, all bets are off. Earthquake, right? Gosh, Rick Rude, Bobby Heenan, these smarks would have barked up the wrong tree and they would have gotten annihilated. I am interested I want everybody just to take this journey with me back into the 80s, about to 92. And how do you think, tweet me at NoDQ_virtue, or you can email me fowvirtue@gmail.com. I want to know what you think. Like, give me a scenario of certain wrestlers, maybe ones that I'm not thinking of right now. How would they react if they read a certain article online or they got tweets from fans that didn't like their push or this or that? How do you think they would have reacted back then? It would have been just so much fun. And like I said, that was back when kayfabe was still around to a degree. Granted, we all know at some point, I don't know when kayfabe truly died, the internet era, the Attitude Era, Vince McMahon in the late 80s saying that it basically wrestling was fake. Who knows? The whole Andy Kaufman, he did a pretty good job selling it with Jerry Lawler. Again, you could have said maybe in the 80s, sometime in the 90s. The internet definitely blew kayfabe up. But it's just such an interesting topic because I think back then the feuds were already good because you didn't have the overexposure of television. Wrestlers fought jobbers for the most part. They did their stuff at house shows. There was only 4 and then 5 major events once King of the Ring came along every year. So like the confrontations felt more important. So I think these wrestlers could have really hyped stuff up with the internet and social media back in the day. And it would have just been so interesting. Obviously Andre the Giant he wouldn't have done anything, but Bobby Heenan could have done stuff on his behalf. And it just would have been so interesting to see Bobby Heenan on Twitter. Jimmy Hart would have been colorful. Could you imagine them on YouTube doing promos on YouTube? The matches, we had WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble. And like I said, we're 93-ish, 91, 92, 93-ish, King of the Ring came about. But they just could have hyped up these big matches other than just doing the vignettes and the promos like on Superstars and Challenge. They could have used social media. They could have used Twitter and Facebook. And they could have even enhanced these big matches that finally did happen at these major events even more. And gosh, it just could have been so good. Like Rick Rude could have been messing with, ladies and getting heat with their husbands. Now, granted, today we all know how that would have went, but we're talking the golden era. We're talking like from 85 to 92. And gosh, there's so many possibilities that go through my head. An early Shawn Michaels when he split from Marty Jannetty and the Rockers, that could have played out awesome on social media. Vince McMahon during the steroid scandal and all that stuff. Davey Boy Smith, the Hart Foundation, you name it. It would have just been, and they could have been in character. But again, like it's hard to say. Like, say if the Smarks knew it was fake and they approached the wrestlers on social media, on the internet, like it was fake, would the wrestlers still stay in character? I believe that generation, 90% of them would have. They would have stayed in character. Back to the Smarks who were like, dude, this is fake. Oh, it would have been so entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just a different time, and it sucks that now when we get the internet boom, for people like me being on all these different websites, giving you my opinion, my analysis, thank you to the Big Vito brand. It's great. So 2018, for all the negativity that is brought to wrestling because of the fans demanding, saying they're going to stop watching, or booing who is pushed, cheering who is supposed to be the bad guy. Through all of it, we are all given a voice, and it's fun. I enjoy it. But I always like to do these what ifs, these for instances. And, you could go back into the Papa Shango and an Ultimate Warrior feud. Not that Papa Shango would have been on Twitter, but he could have just had, like, on his Twitter, Smoking Skull, just the weird stuff like gibberish and, and tagging the Ultimate Warrior in it. And like I said, good old Jim Hellwig, he could have done his soliloquies, more promos. We could have got more cockpit type promos on Twitter. Gosh, it just would have been so much fun. And not just from the wrestlers interacting with each other, building their matches. Everybody knows matches don't sell. It's the building of the matches that sell. And we've heard this before. Oh, but if a match is great, it will sell the next match. Well, how many times did the two guys that just had a match end up at the next big event 3 months later have another match? Usually they did all their house show stuff, but then they'd move on to a different feud. So the great matches don't sell great matches. But the reason why we think that today is because every match has to be the flipping and flying, 15, 20 minutes, 20 false finishes. Back then it didn't have to be. And they could just build. They built by facing jobbers, by having your arms bit with snakes, by doing voodoo hexes, by having like a sensational Queen Sherry try to manipulate the Ultimate Warrior into giving the Macho Man a title shot. So many good possibilities. Remember when Demolition ended up getting the third member in Crush? That could have been a cool scenario on social media with, is Axe stepping away, or is this just going to be Freebird rules? What's going on? And it would have been fun. I mean, today I can't say following wrestlers on Twitter is entertaining because it's almost like they do it as they should for the publicity and to promote. But at the same time, either wrestlers are getting completely bent out of shape, like we've seen recently, because, the Bellas were told by one person's opinion, don't be part of Evolution because I want to see younger females perform. The women wrestlers of today, not the divas, and they get bent out of shape. So you either have that extreme today out of your pro wrestlers, or the ones that they don't do it. WWE has some stooge or shill that sits there and tweets on behalf of some of these wrestlers, or the wrestlers that just don't care and all they do is just type the WWE machine. So it's very either too emotional or it's too bland. Back then, these characters that were larger than life, could you imagine them hitting up dirt sheets, cutting promos to Smarks, that said this and that, and it would have been entertaining. And one person that I would have truly, really, really enjoyed, I think it would have been just absolutely just great to see this guy on social media, would be Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. And like I said, you could have paired Bobby Heenan with him and had Bob Heenan do his thing, but God, Mr. Perfect could, he just could post all of him, because you could record yourself until you get something right. He could be, flipping the garbage can lid back on the garbage can from over his back, or just doing cool things around the house. And once he got a nice video of him doing something perfect, posted on social media. And again, we were lucky. We did get these vignettes on Saturday Morning Challenge and Superstars. When Razor Ramon debuted, he did the whole thing from Miami. Chico, I'm coming to the WWF. and that stuff was cool. But like I said, if they had social media back then and the internet, they could have built those matches at those major pay-per-views even better. And the same goes with WCW. Could you imagine the Monday Night Wars with Twitter and Facebook? Wow. Granted, I went back to the golden era, but like just say, obviously, if it existed in the golden era, we had the internet, obviously, by the Attitude Era, the ratings war, but we didn't really have Facebook and Twitter and quick social media like that and YouTube. Could you imagine through the Attitude Era if we had it? Wow. Just wow, wow, wow. But today we sit here and we complain. Fans complain about other fans. Fans complain about wrestlers that are pushed, wrestlers that are supposed to be heel that they want babyface. Fans will say ratings – or WWE's losing fans, which maybe domestically through cable television ratings, but worldwide through streaming and social media, they're gaining viewers. I mean, the more, they get $10 a pop for the WWE network, okay? They want that number to grow. They don't want it to stop at high 1 millions to 2 million. They want to get that to 3. Right? If there's a niche wrestling WWE fan-based product out there for 3 million, WWE wants them subscribed. Some people saying that WWE doesn't make any money from YouTube and advert. That is a bunch of BS. They do make money from YouTube and the internet. They get 50 million subscribers and all this good stuff. They definitely make money doing that. And the fact that TV companies are still giving them money to have their 2.5 to maybe 3 million at best ratings on TV, well, apparently today that's a good number because Fox and the USA Network wouldn't have shelled out all that money if that number didn't mean something to them and advertisers. It's a different game. NFL games don't get the draw they used to. The most popular sitcoms on TV don't get the draw they used to. Someone told me, hey, Walking Dead got 17 million viewers at its peak. Well, back in the day, TV shows would get 25 or 30 million viewers at their peak. It's a different time, and we've talked about this over and over again. Everybody has a phone. You see people at the mall talking. Instead of holding hands, they're looking at their phone, sitting at a dinner table or out to eat. In the movie theater, everybody's always using their phones. I'm guilty of that too. It's the culture that we are at today. I'm just saying, could you imagine if you transplanted this, take the DeLorean, go back to the 80s, and put today's culture with the internet, with smartphones, with social media and streaming, and give that and see how your King Kong Bundys, your Earthquakes, mostly the heels, that would have just been fantastic. Iraqi sympathizer Sergeant Slaughter, Demolition, you name it. Who else? I said Earthquake. Bobby Heenan, all of his stable. Ravishing Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect. Jake the Snake Roberts. Oh, man, he would have put some beautiful gems on Twitter back in the day. And could you imagine today's I guess we can't transplant today's smarks back then, because back then wrestling fans were respectful, right? They were respectful. So if you take social media and streaming and you put it back then with those fans, probably would be just glorious. Just more ways for the wrestlers to hype their matches. But say you transplanted the fan base back there too with today's online culture, with those old school wrestlers, and those fans would be squealing and oh man, those wrestlers would work them, and it would get so under the fan's skin that I would find it entertaining. That would probably be what I would watch, and then the wrestling shows are just a bonus. But wrestlers try to do that today, but they pick and choose, I think, just the inappropriate times to try to get themselves over with the fans in terms of how they interact with them. And to me, it's them and their real emotions. I don't want to see that. Don't come crying to fans that are criticizing you. Be in character. Be in character and cut a promo like the old school talent would have done if we had today's culture back then. Because they wouldn't have had it. I mean, Piper, if anybody critiqued Piper, he would have lit, especially heel Piper of WrestleMania 1 era, he would have lit them the F up. Wow, could you just imagine? He would have hit them with a digital coconut right on the back of the head. That's what Piper would have done. Jake the Snake Roberts, oh, you do a short arm clothesline and a DDT. Wow. Why don't you be more like the Rockers? We want to see more rockers. Yeah, the Rockers. Young Bucks, you're just rocker wannabes. But Jake the Snake could just psychologically put something out there on Twitter and just bash those fans. He doesn't do it today because wrestlers, again, are not in gimmick. When they're on social media, 90% of them are their real lives, and they're becoming part just of the online community themselves too. And it's like, I've heard people say this, fans have gotten into wrestling, and it's starting to show by their physique, their look, the way they act. Johnny Gargano blocking people. If I was a pro wrestler and anybody critiqued me, it didn't matter. Kevin Owens blocks a lot of people. Johnny Gargano, I guess, recently started blocking people that are, Dave Meltzer and his star ratings are overrated, or, you're too small to make it on the main roster. Wrestlers shouldn't be blocking anybody unless you're being absolutely harassed. But at that point, you should just mute them. You block them, you block a potential fan. Even if they hate you, they're watching you. And again, it's because fans are in the business, right? And some of them have, went to their training, and they're hell of athletes and they do their stuff. But at the end of the day, we're losing the larger-than-life superstars. And that's why Vince clings to Brock Lesnar. That's why he likes Strowman and Reigns, because we've talked about this. That makes Vince millions of dollars from casuals, and it will never change. It will always be that way. And damn, I wish we had this culture, online community with these fans back in the golden era. Now, I would say, how would it exist back in the original era of like the Bruno Sammartino, Haystacks Calhoun, Chief J Strongbow, Pedro Morales in that era? But that was before my time, and that's when it was more of a, considered a sport, and kayfabe was 100% still alive. So I think that's just too far back for me. I guess you can develop your own theory of how today's culture would have worked back then, and how would guys like Bruno have dealt with it. But I like to go back to the golden era because that's when I started watching it. I mean, you can take, Ricky Steamboat. He could be that guy, and, the Tito Santanas. They could be the goodies on Twitter that love everything the fans say, and the fans love them because they were the wrestlers. But the heels and the big guys and the wrestlers that didn't really do a lot of stuff, but it was just about their larger-than-life persona, especially the heels that were used to get, to help boost Hogan, is immortal. And it would have just been fantastic. The whole Warrior and Hogan WrestleMania 6 feud, gosh, man. I mean, we got some treat promos from the Warrior back then. And I don't give a crap what anybody says. Oh, the Warrior was incoherent, he rambled. That was the beauty of it. Because when I was a kid, it pulled me in. It was great. So what do you think? What if you had to write a scenario of the golden era, and certain wrestlers being on social media or getting critiqued by today's type of fan online, how do you think they would react? Who and how? Go ahead and tweet me. I am curious at NoDQ_virtue, because the possibilities are endless. But I do want to do my movies of the week, and we're going to go all out. So here is John Carpenter's Halloween 1 and Halloween 2. Obviously, that was probably the best ones. Now, I myself am a big fan of Halloween 6, but not the theatrical version. I did like the Curse of Thorn and all that crazy stuff, but I like the producer's cut. To me, it really felt mid-90s. It was Donald Pleasance's last performance before he passed away. But if you set that producer's cut aside from theatrical version releases, Halloween 1 and 2, they were masterpieces. After that, they just basically became a franchise where stuff was just thrown together. Donald Pleasance was awesome. Jamie Lee Curtis did a hell of a job. It helped boosted her career. And during this time of year, the John Carpenter Halloweens are a must watch. And if you're only going to watch a couple, watch the original 1 and 2. Now, with that said, I want to give a shout out to Rob Zombie's 1 and 2 that get a lot of heat. Look, he was given the right to make movies about the Michael Myers character, and he wanted to go back a little bit further to Michael Myers' childhood in the first one. And, I think the first one a lot of people did like. It's the second one that got a little goofy in their opinion. But you know what? These were Rob Zombie films. We were coming off of Resurrection, H2O. That's where the Halloween franchise was going. This was a breath of fresh air for me. And I'm a big zombie fan, and I love the Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses, and we're going to get another Devil's Rejects. These were what they were supposed to be. Rob Zombie gore, violent. The kid, the normal kid, Michael Myers in the original Halloween, he didn't have that whole, goofy family that made, at least we didn't know. It looked like he had normal parents that were out on a date and came home, versus Zombie really kind of trailer parking it up. But that's the beauty of Rob Zombie. Are these at the level of these? Absolutely not. No. But these are not crap by any means, and I enjoy them each and every year. Even the White Horse, even the second one, even the ending. But hey, it's easy to hate everything, right? It is. It's so easy to hate everything. But it's really difficult to try to love everything. And that's what I challenge you to do. If you don't like something, just don't hate it. Maybe you'll find a deep appreciation or love for something you dislike. Just stop hating. That's my message. So thank you for watching Virtue's brand of wrestling here on the Big Vito brand on BigVito.com. And I think the other news site Noel's got going is Slambinos.com. But I will be back, and maybe we'll have this little creepy setup every week. But I do want to know your thoughts. How would wrestlers of the golden era react if social media was a thing, if today's smart marks were a thing back in the 80s and early 90s? I want you to give me examples of what wrestlers and what they would do. So make sure you tweet me at NoDQ_Virtue. Make sure you go to the Google Play, to the Podbean, to the YouTube channel, and give us thumbs up and give us all the great attention. Even if you don't like it, come on and tell me I suck. I don't care. I still appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Hey, it's Virtue here from BigVito.com and the Big Vito brand. And I wanted to let everybody know, in case you already didn't, go to ProWrestlingTees.com and search Big Vito, because you will see a spread of t-shirts that are must-owned. And you know what? Here is one as an example. So I hope Noel puts this on the end of some of my videos, because it really makes me look like a big deal that I'm doing commercials for Big Vito's t-shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com. But seriously, folks, you want to represent the Pavarotti of hard shots to the body? Seriously, no joke. You want to get color with the Big Vito and the Big Vito brand? Head on over to PWT. Everybody knows it as ProWrestlingTees.com, and search Big Vito, and you will be able to choose your size. And you know what? I believe once in a while they run promotions and sales, so you always want to look out for that. But anyway, I am Virtue from BigVito.com and the Big Vito brand. Thank you for listening to me.